the declining of African Americans, the decline of the World Series ratings going down 50% since the early 90s he used, going from 20% to 8%. And those statistics are accurate. I mean, the viewership decline is something that I've talked about before and is definitely an issue that baseball has to address. Why people would rather watch a regular football game on any Sunday than a Game 5 or Game 6 of a World Series. It is absolutely an issue for baseball. The thing with baseball, though, is local markets and TV-wise. Local markets are doing great. You're explaining the TV deals for LA, these billion-dollar TV deals. So people locally will watch baseball a lot for their specific team. But because there's so many teams, everyone is focused on their own team and not so focused on the national level. Even when the Red Sox play the Yankees, it's not like everyone has to watch that game. But if there's a rivalry for football, everyone's watching that. And that's obviously partly because football is just simply way more popular than baseball in America. Now, we're not going to talk about how to make baseball more popular than football. It's just not going to happen in this day and age. Despite all of football's negative PR, the concussions, the abuse, the assaults, and all the violence surrounding the game in general, baseball is not going to catch up in this generation. That being said, I think Chris Rock's expose, or you could say rant. I don't like to refer rant because I think comedically it was definitely a piece of art. I really did enjoy the piece. And I think he had some really good points there the whole time. The St. Louis Cardinals team, no black people on the team when they're facing the Giants. Ironically, now they have Jason Hayward starting in their lineup. And he notes to a point in time in the 70s or the 80s when it was kind of a high point for African Americans. You had all of these great African American players making up some estimates as high as 27%, but more modest estimates, 20% seems to be the accurate level. But why has that declined? I mean, obviously there's a number of reasons. I think not necessarily baseball has been racist. I think that would be the complete wrong way to take this. They've done nothing to push people out by any means. There's a number of reasons. First of all, it is absolutely a global economy and it's absolutely a global game. We've seen rising markets in Latin, in Japanese markets, and you could probably argue there's less white people playing the game. Maybe than now than at a certain point in the game's history, obviously, with all of these different cultures coming in and playing this game. The underlying issues that is concerning in my book is the fact that in other countries we have these kind of displays of emotion. In Korea with the amazing bat flips, and I think that was one of his best points is, we play baseball and it's not as exciting as I think it could be, is one of the bigger points that he was making. Yasiel Puig, when he came up, he's getting thrown at for some of his antics, getting criticized by the baseball experts on his antics. He recently changed and is not doing his bat flip anymore, kind of pushed out because it wasn't respectful. So, I think he definitely has a point with some of this traditional style of playing baseball, how he described a white man's game, dating back 100 years ago, wanting to get back to that old style of playing when he notes we still had slaves and all of these issues instead of just having fun and playing the game. And it seems as though he wants more of that kind of entertaining aspect around the game. There's a lot of people in baseball that love the way it is. And baseball is absolutely a beautiful sport. The question is, how do you modernize it? I mean, he talks about this as black people set the trends. I'm not denying that. I mean, as a high school student, half of my high school is making mixtapes on SoundCloud to try to emulate rappers. Kanye, when he does anything, it thousands of retweets. I mean, everyone is focused on his moves, and they do set cultural trends, whether it's hip hop music becoming the new pop music, all of these issues. And has baseball really, sucked up to that? No, but has any sport really, played on that immensely? I'm not sure. I think one of the bigger issues that is a concern, he notes cost as a concern, and then he notes, Dominican Republic players, they don't have the equipment that we do. They still play. Now, I haven't done enough research culturally on why, not having the money and playing baseball. Maybe it's because it's really in the Dominican Republic could be the only thing that brings them out of extreme poverty. And they have guys like Albert Pujols and role models playing it, or it's just simply more popular in that country. But with America, you have so many choices of sports. And you look at Little League declining, and you look at travel baseball costs is really, if you want to set yourself up to start in high school and to maybe go into college and maybe get drafted, you have to start at a pretty young age. And travel baseball does cost a lot of money. So I'm not completely buying into the notion that cost doesn't play into this at all, because I absolutely think it does. Travel baseball cost is definitely a concern. And I think with Rob Manfred, he's trying to bring more youth baseball sports in it. And it is sad to think about how many great athletes baseball is maybe missing out on because they go to football, because you can be more showboat, maybe because more people care about football, maybe more people watch it. You can kind of be more hyped up. You can have more of a personality in basketball. He notes people going out and spending hundreds of dollars on Jordans and that the money not being an excuse. I still think there's absolutely a reason or an underlying reason why some young African Americans are not getting involved in the game because of some of the travel baseball costs. I mean, it absolutely has an effect. Again, he knows back to a time in 1986, the Mets, living in New York, Earl Strawberry, Kevin Mitchell, Mookie Wilson, all of these great, exciting players. And nowadays, he says black people don't care about the Mets. He says the St. Louis Cardinals, he notes the number of white to black ratio there in St. Louis, a pretty prominent African-American town, is comparable to the Ferguson Police Department in terms of the numbers. Howard University, a very prestigious African-American known university, has all these sports, and they stopped playing baseball. It's not even a sport option for them anymore. So he has many points. And I think some of the bigger points obviously go to the declining viewership and declining popularity of baseball in general. I think the piece was very funny. If you haven't watched it, I would absolutely recommend it. And he does have a point. It's something that I've touched upon before. How do we get African Americans back involved in the game? Going from 20% to 8% is alarming. But again, I mean, we are looking at emerging markets all across the world. So to focus solely on that, I think would be maybe overstating it. But at the same time, it is absolutely a concern. And I think, more people should be involved. I know Andrew McCutcheon wrote a great piece on Players Tribune. Derek Jeter's got a post-retirement, venture there where players write really whatever they want. And he wrote about the traveling costs, and he wrote about the minor league struggle, and he wrote about, scholarships. That's another issue, is if you are a very talented two-sport athlete and you have a full ride scholarship for basketball, baseball universities usually only offer out, a few scholarships, not too many opportunities available, not to mention going to school and being a student athlete is very tough. That's a whole nother issue. But the number of scholarships available is a very big concern when it comes to baseball, the opportunities there versus football or basketball. And a generation of the Michael Jordans inspired more youth to pick up the basketball versus, the steroid era that was the same time about, getting more people involved in the sport. That might have something. It is more of a cultural issue and emerging markets worldwide to affect the number of African Americans playing the game. When you look baseball costs, I know he said cost is an issue. I think are absolutely an issue. The involvement in Little League and going past that, I think recruiting, I think scholarships, availability, and obviously just underlining culture of the sport. Can we make it more modern to do for the sport? Somehow I think maybe playing Fall Out Boy as like the anthem for the beginning of the season, playing out in the first game, they perform live, maybe isn't the best way to attract new fans to the game. I mean, you're looking at NBA All-Star games, which are an absolute joke, but they still have very popular and hip artists. I mean, where is that in baseball? Am I saying by having, J. Cole or Drake perform is going to transform the game? No, God, no. But the notion that back to its traditional roots, I think, is one that baseball will have to fight. I'm not sure they're promoting that and actively trying to do that by building new, trying to game. But I do think he has a point. There's a right way or a white way, he says, and a wrong way, and you can't cross that line. And Yasiel Puig did it, and he wants to show respect. But where is that line? I mean, really, is a bat flip, is that really crossing the line? Again, in other cultures, they promote it, they do these crazy bat flips. So just having more personality in the game, personality, rather than saying, well, maybe you should change your bat flip, maybe we'll throw at you. There was a brawl tonight in Kansas City. You're looking, you don't want anything to be hurt, but at the same time, that makes things interesting. That piques people's interest. The same way, when there's a fight in hockey or football, you're talking very physical. For some reason, we love physical contact. It's something, World Star is popular. You're looking at these crazy things. So maybe while I'm not promoting violence, it does make the game a bit more interesting. Again, I'm not saying we should have brawls every night. And obviously the suspensions have gotten very harsh to a point where, I'm surprised 6 people got suspended recently. But what I'm saying is maybe the game needs some more excitement. And maybe some exciting players like Yasiel Puig and others coming into the game, we shouldn't tell them, no, don't do that. But it is sad to think, from 20% to 8%, how many great athletes that we've lost out. Whether that has anything to do with economic inequality over the past 20 years. In the 80s is really when you started to see that big difference, and maybe people not being able to afford travel baseball costs or things that really help get them invested in the game. whether just emerging markets worldwide, whether it's cultural issues and the Michael Jordans, everyone wants to play basketball. But I do think there is something to be said with the cost of picking up a basketball and some shoes and shorts and going basically anywhere and playing on courts versus if you really want to get serious about baseball, get on a travel baseball team. And I think that's one of the main points there. Why Little League has declined so much everywhere is another concern of baseball, and I think youth is a concern. But then you look at baseball itself, and you see all these exciting young players. I mean, this is an amazing age for baseball. They just released that new marketing campaign of, now, focusing on the players of now. This is the best time of baseball. This is all these amazing players that can compare to the players of the past. Maybe that has something to do with athletes being better trained and just getting better and better. Maybe because we're in a pitcher's era, we're not seeing as many home runs. The game isn't exciting. Maybe we need a steroid era to get the peak excitement in the game. But there's a lot of questions on how the game should move forward. I'm not going to stress this as a huge, huge issue for baseball. It's one that Rob Manfred has said he's addressing. I've talked about it in the past, and I think it is something that absolutely needs to be addressed. But I also think when you're looking at in terms of ratings local-wise, the revenue of baseball. So in a lot of aspects, the game is doing very well. It's a healthy game. And then you look at some of the recent developments, the Hamilton situation, how that was handled. Pete Rose in or out. Now he joins Fox Sports. I think there's a push for some progressive changes in the game. And I think when those changes are made and we can get maybe to a bit of a more of a modern game, again, it's hard to say what that would entail. Maybe we can attract a more diverse audience and a better audience. Not a better audience, a more diverse audience to the game. More people is what I mean. The more people, the better. And, when you listen to Rob Manfred, how he wants to get more people watching the game, it sounds like developing narratives, between teams on Sunday Night Baseball that you can kind of have the whole year. But the problem is developing those narratives, if no one's watching the game, what is that actually going to do? I mean, maybe some hardcore baseball fans are going to notice the races and the narratives being said on a weekly basis. But the problem is getting people to watch the game. And exciting players like Yasiel Puig and others, they are the reason people watch the game, or one of the main reasons people watch the game. And again, I think there's a problem when we tell them what they can and cannot do, especially if it's just a bat flip. So that is it. That is a response to Chris Rock's rant. I went on my own little rant about a ton of different things, but Chris Rock obviously has a point. I mean, he took a point. I'm not going to take everything he said literally, but it was a very funny piece. If you haven't seen the full thing, I definitely recommend watching it. Appreciate it for what it is. It is a very good comedic take on baseball's problems. I think they should be addressed, and I'm glad that he did it in a form that also can make people laugh instead of solely make them angry or offend them or whatever. So thanks for watching, guys. My name is Jack McNeil. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter at JackMcNeil44 and tell me everything I just said wrong in this video. And go ahead and follow Baseball Essential at BB_Essential, baseballessential.com. Thanks for tuning in.